Introduction is for everyone who's going to be videoed, but principally I'm here for you today to explain a technique to help you understand, or more importantly the product owner to understand, how much work we've got and how long it's going to take based on what we know so far. Now, we have to make decisions on partial information. We don't know the future, we only know what we know today, and we can only predict based on what we know today. So things will change. So this isn't about being precise, it's about a quick broad brush view of how much work we need to do. Now, my understanding is it's biometrics we're doing, something like that. So that's the project, and so what we're going to do is Nikki's going to explain this, and then we're going to source it. So then each one of these cards, there's 34 of them all up, there's these and the done cards. We're going to be able to attribute story points to all of them very quickly. I've done this in 25 minutes, and then this will give you a high level to be able to estimate to your stream lead, Ben, and to the rest of the organisation. And then as we go, we can adapt it. Before we do that, this is going to be the agenda. So I'm going to explain what refinement is, then what affinity estimating is, which is what we're doing here, and then I'll talk through the process. So the first thing, refinement. I've heard here at Freedom quite a few times people say, oh, we're having a refinement meeting, or that wasn't done in refinement. And it appears that people view refinement as a specific thing that we do, which is to write these physical story cards and get them to meet definition of ready. Which is partially correct. That's part of what refinement is, but I'd like people to view this slightly different, and I know it's been called discovery at Freedom before. Think of refinement as an umbrella term of all of the activity we need to do before we get to sprint planning. Now, many people actually point and size it beforehand, and that's legitimate. If you want to do that, that's fine. My personal preference is I find greater clarity if we do it as late as possible, which is in sprint planning. So the planning poker happens in planning, it's not refinement poker. But there's other things we can do to size it, to get a rule of thumb of the right kind of size. But refinement means other things as well. It could mean looking at the next release, what's going to go in which sprints. It could be looking at UX or architecture, or what was it, design stuff we were talking about yesterday? The interaction design. The interaction design. So there's all of these different things that you need to do before you can start the work. And that's what refinement is, getting the story ready so that we can actually execute it. And it's always a context-specific thing, so every team is different, and you need to know what's suitable for you to do as little as possible, but enough such that you can do the work without being stalling or delaying during the sprint. So that's what refinement is, and the Scrum Guide suggests no more than 10% of your time in a sprint on future sprints, not just the next sprint, but future sprints, all of them. So that's refinement. Affinity estimating. We know the way human brains work is we're really bad at statistical analysis. If I say there's 1,000 beans in a jar, and this one's got 2,000 beans, you can see that one's twice as much as the other. But you can't actually say that one's got 1,312. It's really difficult to estimate that. We're just not wired to do statistical analysis. So that's the first thing. The second thing is when we have conversations to size, usually the person with greatest influence is going to have an anchoring effect, a bias on other people. So that's why when we look at the way we're sizing, we have to use specific techniques to get the greatest value. So that bell curve of estimation is as narrow as possible, and we eliminate as much error as possible. What we do in Affinity is we're going to end up with a sequence of stories from the smallest all the way to the largest, and all of them in between. And the sweet spot of numbers is probably more than 20, fewer than 100. It can be done with more, but it becomes quite hard. It's really quick fire. What we're going to do, the whole team, is firstly the high levels. So product owner, you're going to talk through each one of these at a really high level. Just what this means. So IDEM integration for VR biometrics. Well, this means we have to yada yada. So no more than a few seconds on each. So then we're going to distribute all of the cards out, and as a team you're going to have 3 minutes. And on this table here, this is smallest, this is largest, and you're going to go, oh yeah, that's a biggie, put that there. This is a bit larger, and that's a bit smaller than the next person, and you're just going to go in a sequence and just put them down like this. We'll do that for 3 minutes. If there's any story you go, we really don't know, I'm not sure, we're going to put it at the top. And once the 3 minutes is up, we'll then go to the ones at the top. Oh, by the way, that's in silence, you can't talk. Talking breaks the system. After the 3 minutes, we go to the ones at the top. We clarify, have a quick discussion on these, then we distribute them again. So we'll end up with a sequence like this And what you can do is you go, you know, this is actually larger than that, and this one is probably a bit up here. And we can just move along. And it's in silence, and it's really quick fire. So the team saw. So that's the first round, questions. The second round, questions again. And then as many rounds as it takes. You can do it in 2, maybe 3. Once we've done that, we should have then a line, and we should be satisfied that this story here is larger than this one and smaller than that one, and so on, all the way up. This is where the magic occurs. How do we apply real numbers to it? Well, because you've already done a few stories, the done stories here, we have 1s, 3s, 5s, 8s, and 13s. We then distribute those, and you'll put them down and you'll go 5, yeah, it's probably here, 3 is here, this is probably the same size as these. And again, you sort, and if you disagree, you can swap each other around. Obviously, if we get to a point where you keep swapping like that, then we'll stop and we'll discuss it. We will then be able to create the boundaries. All of these are 1s, these are 2s, these are 3s, 5s, 8s, 13s, 20s. Group them together. Thank you very much, job done. Because then you just add them all up. And I did this once for ASB. We'd been going 5 sprints, so we had enough stories. We had a whole backlog here. Strangely, we got to exactly 1,000 points when we added them all up. Now, some down here were 40s and 30s, are really big numbers. But 1,000 points, and we'd done like 150 so far, so we could tell you when we were going to finish. But that was no good because the bank wanted to finish then. Well, of course we can finish then. Give or take some variation, we're probably going to finish around then. But these stories here are now in question. And it's very easy to speak to stakeholders about, you can have something now and the rest later, or you can have nothing now and the rest later, which do you want? And they go, well, you're telling us the truth, this is the rate we're going, can't do any better than that. And there's questions about how we make it steeper, what things do we drop, that kind of stuff, but it makes it a much more honest conversation because we're using empirical process control. We're using yesterday's weather. So that's why it works, and it is really, really powerful. So that was my spiel. That's affinity estimating. We're going to try it now. And it's a technique I've used quite a few times. I hope you find it high level. We're not getting into the depth, it's just going to be high level, but what your initial reaction is often the right reaction. Thank you.